closer.
Better this way. We'll draw less attention if we... Now what?
No! Please!
Come on, baby. This won't hurt. Wanna bet?
So something I always neglect to remember is that this chapter starts like almost immediately, and you're gonna get your shit kicked in as soon as the camera stops doing its dramatic thing. Like, the enemies don't wait, they just start wailing on you. So welcome to Bikerburg. I really like that there's an in-universe explanation for why we're so far away from Run Runner. Like, most games wouldn't even bother putting an explanation in there. I think the enemies in this level attack slightly faster, but that's not what this level is for. This level is for introducing another enemy type. So much like Kick-Ass 2, this game only technically has two enemy types. It has skinny guys, and it has fat guys. The fat guys take more hits, but they're no harder to knock over. That's very important. You can knock them over just as easy, even though they take more hits. More of the enemies in this level have weapons, and that is important, because getting hit with a weapon is a big deal, while getting hit with fists is not. The level starts out with a slow stream of enemies, and slowly mixes them together more and more as things go on, until it just gets kind of crazy at the end. The game is careful to always give you adequate room to fight the number of enemies you're up against. Like, the more enemies you fight, the more room you have to fight them. The game is very careful about that. It's very deliberate in that. Kick-Ass 2 does not understand that so well, but we'll get to that some other time. So something about finishers in beat-em-ups is that in a lot of beat-em-ups, they actually serve a purpose. They either kill the enemy faster, or, personally, my favorite, they give you room to breathe and assess the situation. In Watchmen, they do the latter. They give you room to breathe and assess the situation. It's a lot easier to kill an enemy with a finisher so you can examine your surroundings and get a break from the chaos than it is to just keep wailing on the enemies. That's why I almost always use finishers intentionally when fighting enemies in Watchmen. It's something that Watchmen sadly made me take for granted when a lot of other beat-em-ups do not really care. A lot of other beat-em-ups not only waste your time by making the finishers take longer than it would to actually just wail on the enemy, but they don't serve any kind of utility. Now, I would say on average, more beat-em-ups use finishers properly than beat-em-ups use them improperly. You know, let's be fair. But the beat-em-ups that do use them improperly always kind of irritate me, because sometimes I will accidentally press the finisher button when I would much rather just keep hitting the enemy. That being said, I would really love to hear of people that played beat-em-ups that use finisher. Oh, also, here's a good example of what I meant. This big area, because there are more enemies to fight than normal. The game understands what it's doing, is what I'm saying. Anyway, I would love to hear about people who have played games where finishers are done improperly. If I recall, Ride to Hell is a very good example, and the fact that the finishers take a very, very long time and are not worth the additional weight because they don't do anything. Surprisingly, I have yet to personally play Ride to Hell, even though Ride to Hell is a beat-em-up / third-person shooter, and those are my favorite genres. But unlike a lot of other games people consider bad, I don't think I could really do anything about that one. Based on what I've seen, it just looks like the beat-em-up combat is broken. Like, way too easily cheesed is what I mean. That doesn't mean I wouldn't have a fun time with it, but unlike a lot of games people consider bad, I couldn't, show them that they were playing it wrong or misunderstood the design or something like that, like I could with Mindjack or Operation Raccoon City or Watchmen. With Ride to Hell, it just looks like it's kind of busted. And making games adequately balanced is difficult, especially games focused on hand-to-hand combat. It's significantly easier to balance a shooter than it is a beat-em-up. So I can definitely appreciate that Watchmen's combat cannot be cheesed in any capacity. Like, either you play the game really well, or you play the game badly and get hit a lot. Playing the game really well isn't cheesing it, though. You just play it so well that it's not challenging. But that's just called being good at the game, I'm pretty sure. There's no way to just stun lock enemies or one combo that fixes everything or anything like that. All of the combos have distinct utilities that are all useful in different situations. And almost all of the mechanics have some usage. You don't even have to look that hard to find it. As much as I can berate people for not trying to explore the mechanics in a game, in Watchmen, the incentive to explore the mechanics is fairly on the surface, you know. Some combos are better in certain situations, and some special moves are better in certain situations, and you're going to immediately notice when that is. Watchmen does as much as possible to make the concept for its design clear and accessible to the average consumer, which, you know, normally I really don't care how accessible a game tries to make itself. You can make your game as inaccessible as you want. Some of my favorite games are utterly inaccessible to the casual audience, but that being said, the fact that Watchmen tries so hard to be accessible means that you really have no excuse if you're bad at it. You're just not paying attention. I could understand, like, normal people having difficulties with challenging segments in the game that are deliberately meant to be challenging for normal people. You know, that's different than just being bad at the game. I'm saying if you're bad at the game, like you don't grasp the game mechanics adequately, that's on you in this instance. It's not the game's fault. I mean, I don't usually think it's the game's fault when you don't understand something, because either you experiment with the mechanics and solve the puzzle yourself, or you read the manual or other provided documentation, and the game makes it clear that way. I cannot count the number of times my brother has gotten stuck somewhere in a video game, and I ask him, did you read the manual? And then he's like, no, and he reads the manual and finds out what the fuck he's supposed to do. Do people even try to read the manuals? I mean, I know manuals primarily exist for older games, but as a recent example, I was playing Asterix and Obelix Kick Buttocks on the PS2, and I didn't get how combos worked, but rather than blame the game for me not understanding how combos worked, I took the manual out of the game case and read the manual, and the manual told me how the combos worked. And when there isn't out-of-game documentation, there's generally in-game documentation somewhere. You know, like a tutorial button in one of the menus, or a manual button in one of the menus. Hell, I'd like to see anyone try and play Toe Jam and Earl without reading the manual. Anyway, back to Watchmen, now that we're done with that tangent. This level, sadly, is missing a lot of dialogue and banter, or morally interesting situations for Rorschach and Night Owl to talk about. In the prison level, both Rorschach and Night Owl gave their opinions on the prison system, and that was interesting, because it gave them character development and showed the differences between the two. Sometimes the animations play out of sync, but I'd like you to name a beat-em-up where that isn't an issue. Like, legitimately, I'd want to know if you found one. But yeah, there's not a lot in this level for Night Owl and Rorschach to discuss or banter about, unlike most of the other levels. Rorschach is just like, sucks that bikers taken over city, and Night Owl doesn't really say anything. I really like this 3-second area, by the way. We're done with it now, but I really like the way that area looked. I wouldn't want to fight anyone there, but it looked cool. This game looks so beautiful. The rain looks so gorgeous in this game. The wet concrete looks gorgeous too. I really, really like how this game looks. Even if this game wasn't good, which it is, I think it's very good, at least it would still look super fucking pretty. For the longest time, I had to play Watchmen on pretty low settings because I was playing it on my laptop. But now that I'm playing it on a decent computer, and I have the settings turned all the way up, yeah, this game looks great. The lighting is good. The cape physics could be better, I will grant you that, but clothing physics are really difficult. We still haven't figured out how to do clothes properly in video games. Making a computer-generated character put on and take off clothes is one of the hardest tasks I can physically imagine someone trying. At least in a realistic fashion, of course. You know, something I thought of while I was playing this game is that even though it doesn't come up frequently, you can hit multiple enemies in Watchmen. That's what the area attack is for. You can hit multiple enemies with your combos in Watchmen, even though that's not like the focus of your combos. But you can't do that in Kick-Ass 2, even if you're deliberately trying to. This game is absolutely fucking filled with physics objects, but you wouldn't even know most of them are physics objects. You wouldn't even know. Like, almost every loose bit of anything is a physics object. All those cans are physics objects. A lot of the waste is physics objects. But you never find out. I guess it's just part of the atmosphere. Like, if you really, really want to, you can kick some trash bags and boxes and bottles around on the ground. Like, see, that box budged, but there's no reason to do it, and it doesn't act like a hazard or anything. It'd be a very different game if they tried to incorporate the physics into the gameplay. I think the physics are just here because it was expected during this era of gaming. Like, you had to have physics. You weren't allowed to just not have physics anymore. You have to have physics now. It's mandatory. Not that I'm complaining about the ragdolls, because I think ragdolls are one of the best things to happen to satisfaction in video games. I think seeing your enemy go limp and flying when you beat them up is great. I remember a lot of people didn't like ragdolls, but that was ages ago, I think. I haven't heard people complain about ragdolls in a long... Look at those shadows! Those shadows are beautiful. Anyway, I haven't heard anyone complain about ragdolls in a long time. I believe right up here is the final encounter of the level, and it's a doozy. There are a lot of fucking enemies, and I really like the red lighting. It's like you're going into the gates of hell past all these bikers. God, there's a lot of them. My favorite parts of the game is when there are so many enemies that it seems unreasonable, because the game is focused largely on fighting one enemy at a time. By the way, if you electrify Night Owl's suit next to that bunch of tires, the tires go flying all over the fucking place, and it's hilarious. But I didn't think to show that off, sadly. But yeah, I love when there are too many enemies, so many that it seems unreasonable. Because I take that as a personal challenge, you know? Like, the game is throwing down the glove. In fact, my favorite level in the game is my favorite level, specifically because it has so many enemies that fight you at once. It's pretty much the only reason. It's not like there's any interesting pathfinding or anything. The game is just like pure beat 'em up. Sometimes you split up and meet up later, but I think that's just for visual variety. I don't think that was meant to add any nuances to the gameplay or anything like that. You figure this last fat guy would give up after we decimated everyone else. I hate the word decimated. I hate that I just used the word decimated. It makes me upset.
Here's rum, Leonard. Now how about that drink? City gets more brutal every day. Animals are taking over zoo.
Right now, we've got more important things to deal
Our
with.
top story, Ozymandias has captured the notorious King of Skin. We go now to Jody Kramer on the scene for an exclusive interview with the famous crime fighter.
Pathetic showboater can't resist camera. Could have been best of us. What a waste.
We all have choices to make, pal. We can't condemn him for his.
Can't we?
Oh, please, man, no trouble. I just got the place patched up from the last time you was here.
I can't make you any promises.
Going somewhere.
I don't know nothing! Honest!
You never do. At first.
Underboss just broke out of prison. He had outside help. Who was it?
I got no idea!
Fine. Let's play some pool. You be cue ball. I'll break.
No, wait! I'll talk!
Quickly.
Word is, it was Jimmy the Gimmick. He messed with the prison's power grid somehow.
Not surprising. Jimmy likes to play both sides of the fence. He'll supply arms to thugs, government black ops, hell, the Girl Scouts if they pay him enough.
What rock is Jimmy hiding under these days?
The old amusement park, I think. You know, the one they're gonna tear down? But you didn't hear it from me, okay? I got enough trouble without... Huh? Oh, jeez. I think I wet myself.
Hit girl, I'm trying to catch the goths that attacked Dr. Gravity.
Okay, I think I saw another of their gangs. I'm gonna follow them, and as soon as I know something, I'll get back to you.
Be careful, Hit girl.
Yeah, I think Hit Girl will be fine. Kick-Ass. So, in addition to Kick-Ass 2 generally being of lesser quality than Watchmen, it has a lot of unused open areas like that place we just walked through back there, which only serve to pad the game length. And when you fight people, you often fight them in very constrained places like this, where it's difficult to get a good angle on everyone, so you may or may not take cheap shots, because the camera is kind of in the scenery a lot of the time. As you just saw, this is something Watchmen is very good at avoiding. There's a perfectly good open area back there where we could have fought these guys, but instead we're fighting them in this really cramped space. Surely you can see that it's a very bizarre choice. And you know, fighting enemies in a cramped area is not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's a legitimate way to add challenge to a game, you know? Limiting the player's movement is sometimes a legitimate way to add challenge, but in Kick-Ass, where the camera isn't great, and you need to focus on reacting to enemies coming at you from all directions, you need a lot of room to move. This isn't like fucking Spider-Man 3, where you can turn on your instinct ability to slow down time and jump off enemies' heads to get a better angle on the situation. You're stuck in the thick of this shit, and your only way to get out is with a roll move. Something that seems very important to mention about Kick-Ass 2's design is that I said in Watchmen explicitly that trying to take care of enemies with weapons first is unnecessary, but in Kick-Ass you definitely want to try to take care of enemies with weapons first, especially when the enemies start getting guns later. Deliberately going for enemies with weapons is a very, very good idea in Kick-Ass. And that doesn't make Kick-Ass worse or anything. In fact, going for enemies with weapons first seems like a natural thing a player would do. So that's not a knock against Kick-Ass, I'm just pointing that out as a difference between Kick-Ass and Watchmen. Also, I know I just said you're stuck in the thick of this, but that's assuming you choose to play the game the way that you probably would choose to play it. You'd probably approach the enemies and try to fight them. But what you can actually do, if you're in the right mindset for it, is stay on the outside of the group of enemies and take cheap shots at them and then run away. When you're a certain distance away from the enemies, your health refills and you run faster than them. So if you stay on the outside of a group of enemies, take cheap shots, and then run, your health will refill on command, because they're not going to catch you. Kick-Ass's design is broken in a lot of ways. Unlike Watchmen, the refilling health in Kick-Ass refills very fast, so as soon as you get out of range of the bad guys, you know, that's it. Your health is already all the way back up. Running away is a very valid strategy in this game. In fact, it's very possible to avoid conflict entirely, but we'll discuss that later. This game has less physics objects than Watchmen. That's really not important at all. I also feel like it's necessary to point out that although I think Watchmen's graphics are beautiful, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with Kick-Ass's graphics. I like the comic book shading. I like the environments. I like the bright yellow in the environment signifying where you should go next. The shadows aren't great, but I've seen worse shadows. You may remember that Kick-Ass specifically mentioned Wi-Fi hotspots in the previous level. Well, I'm going to go out of my way to try and find those for you. I mean, they really don't do anything, unless you really want the trophy. But some of the tweets are kind of cute. Also, this is a really minor complaint, but I wish Kick-Ass climbed ladders a little bit faster. It's not in character for him to climb ladders super fast or anything, but you do a surprising amount of ladder climbing in this video game. Almost as much as you climb over fences. But climbing over fences only takes a couple seconds.
This city looks like the setting for a concert by The Cure.
They're everywhere. I don't know if you heard that beat-up banana jackhammer in the subway.
Banana jackhammer? What kind of porno flick did that guy come from?
He uses that name because he carries a jackhammer and wears yellow. Mr. Filthy Mind.
Oh.
I get that, like, the pop culture references and memes and garbage and may make some people feel weird about the game or think like it's trying too hard. But you gotta remember that these are characters with opinions and beliefs and ideas, and this is something that Kick-Ass does. He's just like this. You don't have to like that he's like this or anything, but that's just how his character is. He shitposts with his face a lot. It's not like Spider-Man doesn't shitpost with his face a lot, it's just that Spider-Man uses less pop culture references because, I don't know. Why does he? I mean, the most likely answer is that Marvel or Disney is afraid it would ruin Spider-Man's image if he did that, but Spider-Man's quips have been established in several media to be something he does to keep himself sane while he's crime fighting. And injecting humor or stupidity into otherwise very serious situations is a good way to keep yourself sane. It is. I know, because I do that in real life. All the fucking time, constantly, non-stop. Joking about the worst things in my life, forever. And I probably will never stop. Unless I lose the ability to speak, but then I'll find some other way. Holy fuck, coming to this game immediately after playing Watchmen, there is so much padding in the environments in this game. I mean, not that most people would want there to be more fighting or anything like that, but there's so much emptiness. I don't like hate the fighting in this game or anything, by the way. It feels okay. The hits are a lot less satisfying than they could be, and I really don't appreciate the way the enemies telegraph their attacks. It makes me feel like the game thinks I'm dumb. Now, there are some games where the enemies telegraphing their attacks like that is very important, like Spider-Man. In what was it, Ultimate Spider-Man? It's very important that the enemies telegraph their attacks that way, because they move really fast and it's easy to get turbo fucked. But in Kick-Ass 2, it just kind of feels like the game thinks I'm an idiot and I can't tell when an enemy's about to swing at me. It gets to the point that I rely too heavily on the exclamation marks that pop up.
Kick-Ass, I have to warn Colonel Stars and Stripes. This aggression cannot go unpunished.
Colonel Stars and Stripes? I don't know him.
He's a hero like in the old days, man. An honest guy, straight arrow, Mr. Perfect. He's the leader of our group.
Group? Are you talking about the group of superheroes?
Of course. Justice forever, man. Hell, the Colonel thought that there were enough of us to set up our own group and take charge. You should drop by our headquarters sometime.
You can count on it, man.
If nothing else, I really, really appreciate the frequency of conversations. I think most of the conversations are entertaining, if not exactly deep. And there are a lot of them. Like a whole lot. So anyway, as I was saying about the telegraphing, I start to rely so much on the exclamation points that I start to kind of play the game poorly as a result. Like, I would have to pay way more attention to the game if it weren't for the exclamation marks. This is a problem I also had with Cursed Crusade, which is a game I really love, where on most of the difficulties, the enemies would fucking glow before they tried to hit you, which was just kind of weird, because they telegraphed their attacks perfectly fine, so there was no need for them to glow like that. Thankfully, turning the game on the highest difficulty turned off their glowing, so that way I had to actually anticipate their movements adequately, which was a lot better, like a whole lot better. I appreciated that. Removing the enemy's blatant telegraphing with the exclamation points in Kick-Ass would also give the roll button more of a function. The roll button gives you significant invincibility frames, but most of the time you're just going to counter everything instead of try and roll out of the way. Unless you have to roll, because there are some weapons that require you roll instead of counter. But most of the time you'll just press the counter button.
Kick-Ass, I managed to get one of them to talk. Although he's going to need a lot less black nail polish now that I've ripped off 3 of his fingers.
Jesus.
Shitty aesthetics and pseudo-nihilistic crap apart, these guys work like a well-organized group. They follow the orders of their leader, a guy called Black Death. Their only rule is to act as a group and beat up all the masked crusaders they cross paths with. Their headquarters is near an abandoned subway station.
Then I'll head to the subway, hit girl.
I hate to be like, that guy, but couldn't we have interrogated someone ourselves? Do you know how many Goths we beat up already? We just need to interrogate one of them, right? Why don't we just grab one, and while we have our batons around his neck, force him to tell us where their hideout is? Because we've snapped a lot of necks, too. So, we're pretty good at the torture thing, I'm pretty sure. You just ask them, for information before you snap their neck, and that's how you get what you want. Or, there were those times that we snapped a guy's arm in half. Why don't we snap one of their arms in half and then threaten to do it to their other arm if they don't tell us something? There are a lot of possibilities here. Could really branch out.
Hit girl, I'm in the subway.
Okay, if you want to reach the City Hall station, you're gonna have to cross the rails.
The fucking subway rails? Are you nuts? I could get fucking run over.
You want to stop that bunch of morons in makeup, don't you? Well, that's the only way.
Yeah, but shit, Mindy. Couldn't you come with me?
Kick-ass, I've told you 1,000 times, never use my real name when we're on duty, not even over the phone. If I don't get back home in 10 minutes, you know who will find out I've been working out with you. And you know what would happen next. You're on your own this time, but you've done all right so far.
Damn.
Said it before, gonna say it again, Kick-Ass's line delivery in this game is really good, considering he's obviously an in-house voice actor. So, when I was recording this level in Kick-Ass, I realized something about how my brain works. Due to the fact that I played so many children's video games right alongside video games made for adults, the way my brain comprehends media is rather abnormal, and I have a hard time distinguishing children's media from adult media now, because I play the two side by side so much. Like, sometimes I'll be playing a game like Kick-Ass 2 and thinking, hey, I wonder if kids would enjoy this game. And then I'll remember, hey, this game isn't for children. Or sometimes I'll be playing something for children, and I'll wonder, why didn't that character curse just then? Seems like a time a normal person might have cursed, and then I'll remember, oh yeah, that's a game for children. I'm just saying that if at any point there were small children over, I might accidentally play an M-rated game while they're in the room with me. Like, I might be playing Kick-Ass 2 while they're in the room with me. And, never mind that most children aren't allowed to say ass. Kick-Ass drops a lot of F-bombs in regular gameplay and during story dialogue. I have to deliberately think about whether a game is suited for a specific audience in order for that to register. There are some exceptions, like when I'm playing something like Postal, I know that that's not for children, because it's deliberately trying to be as offensive as possible. But Kick-Ass 2, it's just telling a story. It doesn't go out of its way to be offensive, it's just telling a story with really fucked up characters in it. Not that going out of your way to be offensive is bad. If you want to go out of your way to be offensive, I'm 100% behind that. In creative media. Not so much in conversation, but in creative media, if you want to go out of your way to be offensive, I'm perfectly chill with that. I think more people should give that a go, because creative fiction is the place you should do that. But sometimes I read things about people getting upset by characters and the way they behave in certain films or video games and shit, and I just really don't get it. Because most of the time the characters are written that way because they're written to be, characters. They act like people. They have personalities.
Shit! This station is a fucking labyrinth!
Ha! Use your spider sense to orient yourself, tough guy.
Ha! The spider sense detects danger. It doesn't orient you.
I know that, dummy. It was just a joke. Use common sense then. Or don't you have that either?
Please excuse that cut. I went halfway up the stairs and then remembered there's a secret Wi-Fi spot down here. Sometimes they're really good about hiding these fucking things, and considering how much people hate this game, and how few people have played it on top of everyone hating it. Can't imagine anyone ever actually found all the Wi-Fi spots. Then again, there is an achievement for it. You know what? I just realized this game has Steam trading cards. Holy shit. I wonder what kind of emoji you get if you get enough cards. That's how it works, right? I haven't messed with Steam trading cards in fucking ages, but I got emojis for a game I really like called, God, what was the name of that fucking game? Will Fight for Food. That was it. That's one of the few games I actually wanted to get badges and emotes for, because I love that game. I wanted to record Will Fight for Food ages ago, but I'm still not certain I could do the narrative themes justice. Like, it's not a great beat-em-up, but it's a great story. One of the best I've ever experienced in video games as a medium. I remember it has mixed reviews, probably because the beat-em-up part isn't so good. It kind of makes me sad that it has mixed reviews, because there's like this idea that games with mixed or negative reviews on Steam are broken in some way. Like, functionally broken. And, you know, many of them are, but Will Fight for Food is not one of them. Maybe people thought the story was overly preachy, or maybe they thought the beat-em-up combat wasn't very good. And the latter I can agree with, but, you know, it's not broken. Steam is a weird place where mixed to negative reviews doesn't mean something is bad. You know, it means that people think it's busted. There's very little middle ground between I like this game and this game is horrible and broken on Steam. I mean technically broken, not broken game design, because a lot of games with broken game design have positive reviews on Steam, but, like, for example, Kick-Ass 2, not really functionally broken to any serious degree. There is something I meant to bring up in this level that I should bring up before it's too late, in that while I was playing this game, there were several points where the game just locked up entirely, and I found out why that was. It was because I was not using the combo system properly, and a lot of the enemies' animations didn't know what to do. So maybe it's not fair to say Kick-Ass isn't technically broken, because the game froze on me and crashed a lot when I played it the first time, because I wasn't using the combos properly, which made the enemies' animations freak out. Sometimes the enemies would just stop animating, period. Now, upon replaying the game and using the combo system properly, I have had no crashes or freezes at all. There are still some bugs, mostly graphical, but there haven't been any crashes or freezes or anything that makes the game just stop working. But the graphical bugs and general jankiness of this game, I just kind of don't really think about it. Because, I mean, yeah, like, look, it's kind of funny that this guy broke mid-animation while he was falling down, but it's a video game, this happens, especially on PC. That happens sometimes. Whenever I sit down to play a PC game, I just kind of expect that something like that might happen. Because PC games are unpredictable, you know? I might start up a game and for some reason my character will start sliding backwards into a wall and the controls won't respond anymore. That might just happen, you know? It's a video game. That happens sometimes. Specifically in 3D games, usually. If there's anything I've learned in my years and years of playing hundreds of video games, it's that making 3D video games is a fucking bitch. Creating 3D worlds for your player to move around in is the fucking worst. It's too hard. No matter how thoroughly you bug test, there's gonna be something. You know, the characters are gonna find some way to clip through something. Your player's gonna find some way to skip through something, or flip over something, or vibrate out of reality. It's just part of making a 3D video game. Now, the thing where Kick-Ass freezes, that's not okay. But graphical glitches, I really could not give a shit about. Unless they're so pervasive that they're just, you know, they hamper the entire experience, which is not the case with Kick-Ass, at least. At least I don't think it is. A lot of people are really sensitive about immersion in games and shit, but like, it's very hard for me to lose my immersion in what's happening. That's very difficult. My suspension of disbelief is very, very high. So we're about at the boss battle, and in this upcoming boss battle I will show you the issues with all boss battles, because I will activate the invincibility button, and you will see how the invincibility button breaks the game design.
You should never have come here. When we're done with you, the only thing left will be your putrid corpse, lying in disgusting pools of blood and mud.
Cut the crap, Edgar Allan Poe.
Silence! You'll be food for worms and rats. The Black Death looms over you. Welcome to your doom.
Hell, that last line is from the first boss in Outer East.
What? Damn well. Welcome to your getting your ass whipped, you son of a bitch.
Well, that one's new. Don't even think about getting up unless you put me to your wolves.
As to wish, Kick-Ass. You may have won the first battle, but we will win the war. We will eliminate you all. Not one masked freak will remain standing in this city.
Well, now you're wearing a mask too.
Damn it, you know what I mean. Masked good guys. Shit, man, what do you want? I'm just following orders. A rich nutcase pays me to say this crap.
Rich nutcase? Who?
I don't know him personally. He says it's too soon to have a good name. The big idiot says he's going to become the first supervillain in history.
Oh yeah? Well, that dumb shit's gonna have to deal with the first supergroup in history.